We're recording now.
Best practices. And we start with roll call.
So,
Or
I'm sorry. Has the issue been resolved or?
I don't think it has been resolved. I thought that we had started the meeting with the point of order, which supersedes all other business.
And I just have to add this right now, if we did not provide the new members with, that you can only follow the rules. If we haven't provided the people, so it's in the packet that's being proposed as a training packet. That explains why people are looking around like, I don't know what you're talking about. So that's my concern, is it's hard to hold people accountable to something they have no knowledge of, and they're trying to run a meeting.
I would argue that people do have knowledge of it because I know that it was reviewed in maybe January of this year. And some things were amended to add monthly meetings or proposed monthly meetings. I remember vaguely, the discussion was there, we've seen them.
That wasn't in a open discussion of best practices. That was a suggestion based on the burden of
Yeah, there was
information that we
definitely
need
a
to
vote.
discuss.
For the first three, I remember having to type it in the minutes.
I remember. that.
Absolutely.
So Marcus presented the idea that we could at least, he's already called the meeting to order.
Yes.
Could at least, we have a quorum. Do the reports, whatever, if there are things that members of this feel that the public need to be able to weigh in on, I'm all for that, I think that's terrible.
Yeah, I would,
Important,
my
we could move
suggestion,
it to the next meeting.
this is a special meeting added to the calendar expressly for the purpose
Correct.
of reviewing the proposed annual report.
And that's
So-
exactly as it was presented.
No
correct,
argument
Marcus?
can be made,
Yes.
I think, that business of reviewing the annual report was not given sufficient public notice. That was what was.
That does kind of make sense to me.
Are you saying that the public notice was the fact that we?
The
talked
fact that
about
we
it
added a
last month?
special session
We
for
wrote
the
it in
purpose
the
of
minutes.
reviewing the annual
It
report.
was in the minutes and that's what you're considering the public notice?
Yes,
Because this is not a regular meeting. It's specific.
this is not a regular
Right.
meeting. This is a meeting added specifically because we did not complete the work of reviewing the annual report in the last meeting. So if we do nothing else, we've given at least 30 days of public notice that we are going to be reviewing an annual report here today.
Maybe I could make a motion to decide this, so we can get past the discussion part. I'll make a motion that this be a work session because public is not provided with notice within the 24 hours of the best practices of the agenda.
I second.
What does it mean that it's just a work session and what does it mean for
Means we can't
July,
adopt the report.
July and August? We have to meet again?
We don't have to meet again.
No, there's no requirement that we finish the annual report today or next month, right? It's.
I thought it was the-
fall.
Wait,
There's no requirement, and a work session means that we can have a meeting, we could cover everything on the agenda if we want to. But we can't vote on items because it's not a properly noticed. It's not a properly public noticed meeting per our, what you call.
The
I-
report
The meeting is
supposed to
public
be
notice.
Yeah,
given
I object to the
Meeting
best
is public
practice is not
notice.
controlling.
The
The
report
best
is,
practice is not a rule, it is not controlling, it does not articulate our legal obligations. A best practice is a best practice, it's a guideline used internally to set expectations. And that's all it is.
I would disagree with that. When we were, and maybe some of the other members who were here at the time can weigh in. When we were developing our best practices, we met with an attorney who advised us on what to put into best practices or what to leave out so that we would not be bumping up against things that we weren't able to perform. So we wanted to keep it realistic and keep it simple. That's what the attorney advised us. So there was legal advice about the best practices.
An attorney's opinion is not controlling either.
Marcus, may I please? If the point of order is in reference to the agenda not being available more than 24 hours prior to the meeting, this is a newfound adherence to the best practices that you have shown. in that the meetings from the meeting, the minutes from the meeting where Diane was absent and we had no secretary, they were not posted within 5 days as statutorily required, not just a best practice.
That's not true.
Hold on.
I did it within the 5 days. I have always done it within the 5 days.
So I'm gonna read our best practices. The HEAC meets monthly, September through May. On the third Friday, we made an amendment to move it to the second of every month with alternating months as placeholders. It's supposed to be revised to June for the placeholder months. HEAC meetings will occur at a location provided by the Department of Education. The chairman prepares a draft annual report for approval by a majority vote of the council prior to presenting it to the State Board of Education. A minority report may be prepared. Okay, the chairman may delegate responsibilities to the vice chair or other council members as needed. Meetings will be posted on the DOE website and at the DOE meeting location at least 24 hours ahead. It does not say agenda. Every effort will be made to also publish. We put that in there purposefully, as I recall, because we weren't sure that we would always be able to do that. It's right there. It says this, wait, hang on, the
Just
meeting will
what
be
date is
posted
that? What date is?
on the DOE website and at the DOE meeting location at least 24 hours in advance. Every effort will be made to also publish an agenda and related meeting materials prior to the meeting. This goes beyond the right to know requirement. HEAC council members and the public can attend remotely. The public will have an opportunity to address the council at the end of the meeting and at the discretion of the chairman. The individual will identify themselves by name and affiliation. HEAC post minutes, meeting materials, and this is where we got a lot of legal advice. Annual reports and recordings of meetings on the DOE website and retain them for a minimum of blank years. Currently, meeting materials and recording are not shared. We then made the decision with lots of public input to share them. Okay, those are the 8 ones that we made.
May I ask what date that was
It's
updated?
the 2023 ones that we adopted.
September 15th, 2023?
No.
This is April when you discussed them, so I haven't got
Okay,
to
so it's
September.
April when we discussed them.
Yeah.
This is September
you-
15th, 2023. This is the one,
Is there a publicly
Doesn't
posted
say
best
that,
practices notice?
Okay,
No.
so here's how this reads. So again, I want to be careful because it's not saying the exact same thing you're saying, and I'm not being argumentative. It says meeting notices will be posted on the NHED website and at the NHED meeting location at least 24 hours in advance in accordance with RSA 91-A requirements. The agenda is separate. It says the agenda will be published on the NHED website. It does not say within 24 hours. I think when we discussed this, we were concerned that it might not be able to be done.
As this month it was not. Well, do we want to continue?
Yeah,
with the
there it
vote?
is. The motion was made, second by me to change number 5 to read, they will be posted. It does not, we set that as a separate sentence. The agenda
so
will
my
be
understanding of
published.
that is that that's part of the meeting materials and that would be 24 hours. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I actually made the motion that day that we put that best practices number 8 to read that we would post all those things. And I didn't give a 24-hour notice. Then there was talk or whatever, and we changed it to read that we would produce the 2 things that we have to 24 hours ahead. And then the agenda will be published, and we left the other things out that we talked about purposefully. And I think that was under the advisement of legal counsel at the time. Again, it's not to keep people from being able to participate. But the truth of the matter is, there may be a time that someone cannot do an agenda. By law, you have to have the other 2 pieces out 24 hours ahead, so.
Sounds like it was to deal with a situation exactly like
Like
this,
this.
so that we don't all come here and then not be able to have a meeting.
Okay, so there's a
There's a
motion on the
motion.
table and it was seconded, so we need to follow through and complete
Right.
that process.
Roll call?
Yes, Rebecca Anderson.
Present?
No, sorry, this is on the point of order.
Oh,
The motion was that we would go to a work session because we did not properly notice the 24 hours.
I would say no.
So no work session. Heather Barker.
No. As
Yeah.
it's read, as you just read it, which is, we didn't appropriately, or what was your phrase?
That
We
we
didn't-
had not properly,
We did not properly notice this meeting. We did in fact properly notice the meeting, so no.
Well, is that the motion?
You just said it's a work session. I'm saying no. I'm giving the reason why I'm saying no.
I believe we've had
Work
enough
session.
discussion to invalidate the point of order.
But the motion was. made,
Nonetheless,
seconded,
there's a motion to
So
vote.
Yeah,
that
so I
you
said
vote
no.
on, Leah Barton.
Yes.
Joe Grant is not here, is that correct? She is usually online. Not here. Diane Nolan. Yes. James O'Rourke, not here. Michelle Rohrer
No,
and Marcus Zoom.
No.
Okay, no's have it. Now we can do roll call.
Okay.
Excellent.
Now that we voted, let's see who's here.
Okay, first, if you are, on video, do we have any numbers? No. You would have to state the reason why they're physically not, why it was not physically practical for them to be here. So, we'll just roll Rebecca Anderson,
Present.
Heather Barker,
Present.
Althea Barton,
Present.
Joe Grant, no, Diane Nolan, present, James O'Rourke, no, Michelle Rohrabacher,
present,
Marcus Stewart,
Present.
Senator Ward,
No.
Representative Dry,
Present.
Representative Petman.
Here.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah. If everyone wants to take a few minutes to review the minutes from last meeting. everybody finished?
I have two questions on the second page about the center, Diane.
About what?
Around the center, the Ms. Nolan asked about the
Relevance.
relevance, can't talk today. And where it says that several council members acknowledge that there's been significant discussion related to the program despite the commitment to curb such discussions.
Yep, what's your question?
I don't recall that being the case of the content of the discussions.
I think she just meant that,
Well,
even though we didn't want to be discussing the EFAs, it kept coming up.
Right, I think that was contextual to the question of why is the EFA matter mentioned in the report at all? And it's mentioned because it has occupied a lot of the attention and time of the council during the year, so it wouldn't really be an accurate report if we pretended that that had not occurred.
Right, but the point was in contention with the content of the paragraph that referenced that much of our time has been
Right.
related to problems, not discussions.
I could say it's discussions. Yeah, I know.
I mean, discussions is really just a way of, is
Discussion.
a way of just
Discussion.
softening the
Yeah.
delivery there a little bit.
The statement, though, that the only time we talked about it was in September is inaccurate.
Well, I think if you consider the 2024-2025 meetings to be those from September to now.
Right.
September was the only meeting where EFA regular business in terms of questions from the public and things were being heard. And then after the September meeting is when we instituted the regime of refusing that sort of question. And much of the discussion since has stemmed from that decision to sort of reaffirm that this is a 193A only body. But in the September meeting,
Oh, I see what
questions
you're
were
saying.
coming from
I see what you're
both
saying.
pathways
Say the
and
whole-
being treated as just regular business.
Yeah, I would say our whole year has focused on whether or not people can do these things together. Are what is home education versus public home education? What, all of those things. So I'm hopeful and excited that we could at some point put that to rest and do some of the other work that we've been doing. That would be great.
Right.
Right, so I'm hopeful. But I think our whole year has been taken up by this.
Which,
And it has become very contentious, a very harmonious
Right.
group that I've been on for several years has become very acrimonious.
well, this is why I
Growing
saw
pains,
fit
yeah.
to mention the
Yeah.
existence of the EFA controversy in the first draft of the report. And then, from what we see here, I was only basically only instructed to expand that by the comments, because things that I was hand waving at, people were asking for specifics. You should define conflation, you should define what the pathways are, you should, what do you call it? That sort of thing, you should enumerate what public comments and complaints we've received relating to scholarship fund and things like that, so. It was not my intention to have
No, I know that.
EFA focused report, but that's what we ended up with.
So let's
You
take
just have
the
a
minutes,
60 minutes?
yeah, let's just, I'm not sure who said that, but I don't think it's true that it's fine, let's go. I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm sorry. Hold
Right.
aside.
Okay,
I have just one typo in that third line from the bottom, that the council was never advocating, which was in that same paragraph. Take
Here,
to
okay.
Page two,
Yep.
third line from the bottom, should be never advocating or discussing. It's a typo. That the council was never advocating or discussing how to apply for any. Let's see, we're in the paragraph that begins, Ms. Nolan asked about the relevance
Okay,
and.
never advocating or discussing.
Yeah, and it just says application.
Oh,
It's
right.
just a tiny.
Can't even see it now. Thank you.
Tiny, tiny things.
Okay, I will change that to advocating.
Great.
Final, motion of, closing the meeting. My last name is spelled incorrectly.
I know.
Last page.
Say again,
The motion to close the meeting,
motion
Second.
second.
my second. It's just, my last name is
Oh,
misspelled.
well, yeah, that's terrible, sorry.
It's common.
It probably over.
It might have.
Okay, those items are changed. Anything else?
You need to vote to adopt the
Amend,
amended,
need to make a motion.
move to adopt the amended minutes.
Second? Rebecca Anderson,
Yes,
Heather Barker,
Abstain because I wasn't here.
Althea Barker,
Yes.
Diane Nolan, yes. Michelle Roebucker,
Yes.
Marcus Stewart,
Yes.
so.
All right, does anybody have immediate business?
I
No,
would actually like to suggest that we have immediate business.
we do.
I would suggest that the immediate business should really be to review the discussion of the repeal from the perspective of what we are supposed to take moving forward from that. And invite the transparency and commitment of our members to follow what was asked during that hearing, to follow the rules and responsibilities. I did draft minutes from what was said during the hearing in the executive session.
Just for minutes, I do think you have to do the appointments and resignation.
Oh, sure.
Yes, so we have the resignation of Michael Kosky, have that letter in your packet. We have to take any action, just acknowledging it.
Great. Now we can, so,
Okay, no, that's great.
I just want to make sure we did it.
Yeah. So I'm just suggesting that we review that. Representative Cordelli happens to be in the room. He would like to speak on it as well. That would be an option.
I disagree with the framing of this. We don't answer to Rep. Cordelli. If he wants as a political action to dissolve this council, he certainly has the right to try again. But his opinion on what should be our motive of operation is not controlling. Except insofar as he's a member of the legislature. So if they want to change the law as to what how we operate, then they're welcome to. And as a member of the public, he's welcome to comment. But this idea that, he put forward a amendment to an unrelated law to try to dissolve this body and failed. And that as a result, we should take instructions from him as to how to operate as a council. That does not make any sense to me, and I don't think that, that is, that should take priority over our real business here today, which is to review our annual report.
I would agree.
So we should not, you're saying that we should not review anything to do with the repeal
No, I-
hearing or the executive session?
I
Well-
believe we've received relevant comments from the public
Yeah.
that we should discuss. I do not believe that Representative Cordelli has the platform to speak at this time.
And as I said, it's the framing. I mean, if Rep. Cordelli wants to give a comment as a member of the public.
He does.
And whatever comment, that's fine. But your framing
Right,
that we need to commit ourselves to operate in the way indicated by Rep. Cordelli in his failed dissolution hearing, I don't agree with that.
Well, I'm sorry if it sounded that way. I was not suggesting that.
Okay,
I was suggesting that we make a commitment moving forward to make sure that we're not on the table again for review.
Isn't
I
this
think we
in the
know-
agenda already under new business?
It is.
Member discussion.
so we have a,
So
we have I invite a member discussion of the repeal. And I also invite a discussion in new business of your proposed training, which is. We all would recognize, related to your feelings about the repeal, so.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say something here. I think it's really important. This has great value. School choice, public education, home education. Okay, I've been an educator for 36 years plus. This is a very important council. We must partner with the legislature, the Department of Education, public schools, and the home education community to ensure that there is a voice for home educated families. This has been that platform. The work we've done over the years that I've been on this council has been exceptional. Reviewing laws and rules, making sure that families know about opportunities that are available to them, creating networks and community for home education families, creating opportunity and legislation for home educated families to participate in schools, making sure that public schools know their obligation to home educated children. I want to be really careful here how we move forward. Right? And I don't want to get into a political sort of platform here of all of those things. We are all partners. I agree that it can't be on a person or whatever. However, the fact that there was an issue that was brought forward because there seems to be acrimony and tension and conflict. And again, sometimes conflict and all those things are healthy. This is bordering on unhealthy and not good, okay? So that's my opinion, and I've been doing this a long time. The only way as a state, a nation, whatever, we are better together. So I feel really strongly that whatever happens at this meeting and moving forward is in the spirit of collaboration and congeniality with civility
May
and
I-
on all parties' parts, for sure. Because I've sat here and listened to, a state official with tension and stuff and people talking to each other that is not civil at times and vice versa. So I'm just saying, as a person on this council, it's very important to me that whatever happens moving forward, we are actually doing it in the best interest of the home education community and our state in relation to all the other stakeholder groups that we work with. That's just, I feel really strongly that this is really tipping.
Can I add to
Sure.
Heather's comments? I agree. The point that things depart from agreement are with the reasoning that Representative Cordelli gave for presenting the amendment to begin with, in that he felt the HEAC had strayed from its moorings, which was an inaccurate description. We continue to maintain support for 193A home educated families, and the feelings of the legislature, including Representative Cordelli, are that because we are not supportive of 194F families, we are therefore strayed from our moorings of 193A, and that is an inaccurate description of the HEAC's activities.
I would have to.
So
disagree
are
with
we
that.
are we in,
Excuse me.
where
I
are we
would
in this?
disagree with that, because the purpose of HEAC is to support and encourage and disseminate information about the needs of home educated families under 193A. And a significant portion of the meetings have been focused on problems with the Children's Scholarship Fund, problems with the EFA. I went back and read all of the minutes. We did this council did very little work that focused on the needs and concerns of 193A, except where some members found issues with 194F.
That is incorrect.
That's my understanding. That is what I have heard. That is what I have seen. I have seen a lot of animosity. And I actually commented at the last meeting that there was concern in the legislature about what was going on here. And we saw the fruits of that with that attempt to repeal the entire Home Education Advisory Council.
I see that as a political action. There are members of the legislature who are dissatisfied with this body because opinions have been expressed here which are inconvenient to their present political program. We are not on board for an aspect of the Republican, not every member here is on board for one aspect of the Republican, EFA agenda. And we are supposed to be, and our punishment is that we're going to have our council repealed. And that's fine if they want to do that, but it's a political action. And all this discussion about civility is beside the point. We are here to discuss these things, to wrestle with issues and wrestle with what is best for 193A families and what are their interests and whether their interests are being, supported or threatened by current policies and then proposed laws and things like that. So if we can not have those discussions anytime we disagree with certain politicians, then it's best that we not have the council. Because otherwise, what are we doing? We're going to be here and we're only going to speak when, the legislature or the commissioner or whomever agrees with what we're saying. So we become a rubber stamp for whatever policy comes down the road. They can say, oh, we consulted the community. We have this HEAC where the community can make their voices known, except now the members of the HEAC are afraid to express an opinion that would be unpopular with some subset of the political landscape.
So Marcus, I have to respond to this. The Home Education Advisory Council shall carry out those duties assigned to it by the commissioner. The council shall work with home educators and representatives of private and public education to encourage an understanding of home education. The Home Education Advisory Council shall comply with RSA 91A. And that goes on with the minutes shall be maintained by the department assigned their responsibility shall include the following. Developing and maintaining effective communication between between home educators and those public and non-public schools and state local agencies involved in home education. During my tenure here, we have done a great job with that. Recommending to the commissioner and State Board of Education desired changes to rules. So it's to the commissioner. We are in service to the commissioner and the Department of Education as a body.
Well, that is,
Establishing a grievance committee to hear grievances referred to it by the commissioner and providing an annual report to the state board on its activities. So
point two
Yeah.
is a policy recommending function, which means the council needs to come to a consensus or at least a majority opinion about what is the right direction for rules regarding homeschooling. So we do have a policy scope. Point one, developing and maintaining effective communication between home educators and the public, non-public schools. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that our business here is to be the conduit of communication.
I'm not
It's-
suggesting that. I'm saying though that we are charged. That I just want to be clear on what our charge is, okay? That we are actually in service to, we are an advising body to the commissioner of the Department of Education for the state of New Hampshire. We are not an independent functioning body. That's who oversees us. So while the legislature when they wrote this, right, and then they created rules, they created HEAC, okay? At any point in time, they could choose not to have it or whatever, which I think would be terribly sad and a terrible outcome. And I do agree that there has to be opportunity for people to voice all opinions, regardless of how people feel about them. But we are not an independent body, and this is not a political thing. It doesn't matter about all those things, but we are actually assigned to carry out duties by the commissioner and for the commissioner in service to informing the greater community, in service to home educated families about home education. So that's actually what we're truly charged with. So I want to just be clear that what our purpose is. And I understand that you.
Some of our purposes, though, necessitate having policy opinions. And that as a deliberative body of multiple members, that's
Right.
going to include members having differences of opinion on
Yeah.
policy matters. And I don't believe that any of the political pushback that we've received in the last few months has anything to do with us exceeding our scope or not staying in our lane, or whatever you want to call it. It has to do with some members and the organizations behind them being politically at odds with a particular policy.
So what is the
Well,
policy? Yeah,
well,
like we can
the
get-
EFA thing, right?
But we've
We
got.
did not, we as a body were receiving questions about EFAs and satisfying that up until the beginning of this year.
Yes.
And nobody ever complained, even though it is outside of our scope. We're not the body for 194F questions. But as long as we were playing along and participating in the conflation of the two pathways, there was no complaint. It was only when we started excluding the 194F questions and activities from the meetings. That was when we get a visit from the commissioner. That's when the whisper campaign starts up that we're off the hook and we're outside of our mission. So when we try to come back to the mission of serving the 193A community, that was when we started getting what I see as political pushback. And it is political. It is because there is a preferred policy from, one half of the political spectrum currently, and the opinion of certain members of this committee and the organizations they represent is inconvenient to that policy. And whatever they may say about acrimony or unprofessionalism or exceeding our authority, it comes from the difference of opinion about policy. We were exceeding our authority by far when we were taking questions about EFAs back in September and before.
An advising body. We're not a policy body.
An advising body is a policy.
No, an advising bodies sends things to the commissioner for him to consider. It's not our place to make the decisions.
That
We
is-
did ask a great question. The question that came up, because things blew up in September and October. The question that came up was, can a family, so fundamentally, are we supporting any home educating family, regardless of what pathway they chose, which is when we started talking about. Parents need, schools need to know, everybody needs to know sort of the pathway, because there are differences. That makes sense to me, right? At the same time, question came up around, is it okay for parents, a EFA parent who's home educating their child to also access that scholarship money, which is from private donors? And that was the question, my understanding, that we were looking for an answer for. And it appears that there are answers here now that are in these, I've seen documents here where people have weighed in on them. So that it is not our place to agree, disagree, or whatever. If we think as a body, as an advisory board or council, that there needs to be a change to the rules or the law, it is our responsibility to give that to the commissioner, and it's then the commissioner's job to decide what to do with that.
What I'm
That's our
saying is
role.
what you just said.
Yeah.
If we think there should be a change to the rules of the law.
Right.
That's a policy opinion, and the only way that a body like ours arrives at a policy opinion like that is by discussion. With different, it is, what I'm saying is, it is a political policy discussion that you're having. I mean, it's not that we decide anything, we don't decide
No.
anything, but we could, as you say, recommend.
Well, my time on this council, was that
deciding
we
what to
actually looked
recommend.
at the actual rules in the documents. And we saw what they said, so if the rule, I mean, that's the work we did, you would actually look and see. What's the intent or what was the language that people were using? And therefore, we were really strictly by the rules of the piece, and if we saw that it was missing something. Then we worked to inform the commissioner, who would then work with others if there was something, so. There was a fuzzy problem that was brought forward, there was a question out in the world. Can EFA families, are they home educated? What is that, right? And sort of that's now the commissioner, the legislature, us informing that this has become an issue that people are asking questions about. There are factions that are sort of aligning in the background. We've seen the letters where there are lots of people, and there are people on this council who feel really strongly about traditional home education that is not funded by a state government community, whatever. It's parents doing their thing. And that has historically been home education. In a way, there's a growing pain thing going on because now you have another pathway for people to home educate that's different and a different law and rules. And so we have had some healthy discussions about where do they intersect or not intersect? Is it clear or does it need to be like sent back to the legislature? Like, can you clear this up? Be clear. We've done that before where we presented things to the commissioner for them to clean up in the law or rules, and they did it actually. So this body has made advising to him, in this case, to do that. So I'm very comfortable with that role. I'm uncomfortable with the idea that we're gonna have like a platform of here's our beliefs. We have best practices, right? But here's a setup, this is what our policies are as a council. I'm not sure that's in our scope of practice, that's all I'm saying, and you can convince me I'm wrong, I'm just concerned that I feel uncomfortable going.
No, I mean, I don't think it's, we're not exclusively here to advocate, obviously.
Right,
We have two sides to the work we do. There's a side in which we are deferential to the law and rules that exist when we're advising families as to how to interact with the system. We need to accurately
Or schools,
interpret,
right?
or schools, or any of, but,
Right,
you know,
right,
primarily,
yes.
okay, my
Yes.
constituents is families, right?
yeah,
So when we're advising them, yes, we have to be very, very much in adherence to what the laws and the rules are, to give people correct advice as to how
Correct.
they, as individuals, or organizations, navigate the system. The other side is, what should the laws and rules be? Now, we don't get to make the final decision on that, but we are invited to make recommendations.
Yeah.
And so that discussion, that normative discussion of what should be, what is that currently that is wrong, that is also part of our remit, not all of it, but part of our remit. And I notice that we can have as many of those discussions as we like without any flack until we're stepping on somebody's toes in terms of their agenda. And that much of what we've been getting in terms of static from the legislature is just that. We're inconvenient to the advocates for the EFA program. We're being inconvenient. We're not being good soldiers for the Republican side. And so, you know, the arguments abound about why what we're doing is wrong, but the underlying motivation is that things that have been said in these meetings are inconvenient to a particular political agenda. And what I take away from that, though, is that we're being asked to gag ourselves. We're being asked to never say anything controversial here, or or else you'll lose the HEAC. And my position is, if that's the rule, then it's best to lose the HEAC. It's better to not have a body, because the other work we do, giving people advice, interpreting the law, all of that is things that the constituent organizations can do themselves perfectly well. It's all, as far as, the reports from the members, what we've done this month, how many, new memberships, activities, events. Anybody can do a press release. Anybody, anybody can put up a website or have a Facebook group, getting information out there, spreading it around, the Department of Education promulgating their press releases. None of that requires that you sit here and you go through this rigmarole of having, voting members in a board and following, the public meeting rules and all of this. If we're just here to talk about all the good work we're doing in our individual organizations, or we're just here to hear what the Department of Education wants to promulgate to the home education community, we don't need to be a council with all of the bells and whistles and formalities. The only reason for being a council, for having these formalities, is because one part of our work is to influence or deliberate on potential policy. And that's something that is of interest to the public. That's something that needs to be accountable. That's something where you need to have this, this rigor
well, I think
applied
the
to.
intention of the council was to have a voice for home educated families and to ensure that their rights were protected, because if you go back to when this was happening, parents of children, I've heard these stories over the years of were being treated fairly or differently by public education or whatever town, all of those things. So that's the important part of this. And I would say that we have had some really interesting, engaged conversations about trying to understand ourselves. And again, in response to the public's questions around where does traditional we started talking about that, like we need to identify. And I think that's a really healthy outcome of this year's work, that there's a traditional, non-public education, home education. There are then 4 pathways for public education in New Hampshire. One of them is an EFA that may or may not include a home education piece of that. And then the question becomes,
Not home
like,
education, I'm sorry.
homeschooling, that's right.
If you,
That's correct, that's right. You're right, because I see that in here in conversation, because again, that's another thing that perhaps could be cleaned up by the legislature with a recommendation to the commissioner of, we're talking about home education, we're talking about homeschooling. You know, and cleaning up those different pathways and being articulate. We've talked a lot about that this year. We've done some great work in conversation about how do we inform our public so that a parent who's choosing a pathway, including traditional home education, knows what each one of them is and what sort of goes along with it. Okay, and then came this conversation about EFAs and homeschooling and whether or not those parents could ask questions. That like blew up on the scene in September. Because in the past, it wasn't every meeting, but people asked a question here or there about it. And then there was concern that people were promoting EFAs and all of those things, which I know was truly happening. I'm not saying it wasn't. What I'm saying is, these things are happening on a landscape because this is kind of happening like live. It's not like people thought about it for 2 years, created a plan, and now we're gonna implement it. It's happening as it's happening. So I'm not surprised by all of this, but at the end of the day, it would be a crime not to have a home education advisory council. And I think it's also terribly important that we do discuss these things, but again, it's not about, I mean, I heard terms like this is illegal, we need, who's telling us what? I don't know the answer. But again, we ask the question and someone else gets it. And again, in fairness to you, you said you had asked that, we've asked that question since the fall. We now have written response by the commissioner and others, legal councils, and that the scholarship fund, that a family could in fact access funds from both sources, pulling staff.
Now, what I would say is,
Yeah,
I don't
know if that.
I don't know if that's settled, but I think it's settled to the extent that we can discuss it here.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to concede that,
No,
that some
I'm not
lawyer
asking
somewhere
you to.
writing a
No,
letter.
I'm not
settled
asking you
the
to, but I'm saying that people responded to the request.
Right, right.
For the information, we actually have that stuff. So in terms of where we started in September to today, we've moved along.
Right.
A pathway, and I do think that there's more than one group in this room that has a political agenda, and that's not a criticism. You guys feel strongly, really strongly, about protecting the traditional home education pathway. It's a standalone, it needs to be its own thing. And I'm saying, and then there's, okay, and now there's this other thing, and that's encroaching on our traditional thing. I don't have an opinion right now about what's right, but what would not be good is that we say, okay, that's fine. Well, if we don't do exactly what they say, well, then we're not gonna do this. I don't wanna do this.
It's not about doing what I
I
say.
know.
In principle,
I
if
hear
we
what you're
say every controversial
Yeah.
take, because it's not necessarily going to be this. It's going to be, it's going to be, defending a parent, or it's going to be some position that we as council or members of the council take, which is unpopular. And if we always shy away from making controversial statements or taking controversial, positions, or even entertaining controversial positions, then it's actually destructive to the rights of home education families for a council to sit to allow things that perhaps ought to be contested to go by because they're too afraid of getting in hot water, right? Because you're implicitly endorsing everything that's done while you sit. The HEAC exists, and so every new law, every new policy, every law change is presumed to occur with the with the consultation of the home education community. And so you're actually harming the interests of that community if you
Well,
sit
there too,
and then
though.
never engage in anything controversial. So that's my concern.
I hear what your concern is, but I would say that we are not involved in every law and policy or whatever that's done. We chose things to follow.
Well, that's right,
Right.
but yes, but
So
if-
in
but
that
let's say
case,
if
I
we
would
did-
support that this council, if these are things that have to do with this, the home education community and council identified things that would impact or be of interest or influence home education families and what they should know or all those things. So we started following those laws. Or bills, I have no problem continuing to inform the home education parent community of what's happening with those.
Right.
Okay, so in that respect, that's where healthy dialogue happens here. And making sure people have the information, but I wanna make sure it's not biased one way or the other. Frankly.
I understand.
It's
I'm
an
just-
apolitical group.
I'm saying any one of these, and, you know, I'm sorry I didn't remove them, any one
Yeah.
of these laws, right?
Yeah.
If we had found some strong cause to take a position on it, we could have
Been
invoked the ire of some legislator who would have tried to dissolve us. For any position on any one of these, on one of these legislative proposals this year.
I'm not sure about that, but I'm sorry, I keep.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I've had my hand up for a while.
Yes, she just,
I just wanna say, I respect both of your opinions and I appreciate the dialogue that you two are having.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm gonna be quiet now.
I just joke. I take issue with one thing you've said, which is that the only reason we bring this board together and go through the rigmarole of, you know, the inconvenience of whatever we're doing is like to have member updates on events or things that are happening, which we don't need this body for, according to what you just said, I believe.
I'm saying, I'm not saying,
Paraphrasing.
I'm saying it's only the policy aspect of it that justifies the formality.
So
Not
I
the
hear your opinion on that.
information sharing.
I hear your opinion on that. And obviously you feel very strongly about that. I don't know that that's shared by everyone in the room, and there's a really important part of what the HEAC does, which I consider like the meat of it, is that we bring together the Principals Association and this School Administrators Association, and we're supposed to have someone from the Board of Education here as well, that
And
position.
the legislature said we're.
And the legislature,
Yeah.
and we bring together representatives from various organizations that have different opinions on things. And it gives us a forum to work out problems. I think that's the meat of what we do, and I really do not want to lose the HEAC. Because we would be losing that important function. I'm not saying that we need to bow to anyone's pressure. I'm just saying that I want to make sure that we keep the HEAC going.
If we had a grassroots private group that wasn't HEAC, then that group could take a much more political advocacy stance, but it seems like the thing that is unique to this that we couldn't have without it is being face to face with the reps and the people.
Why
like
would we not be
people-
able to? I mean, anybody can solicit their rep, and if you're a large enough organization, they'll usually come to you. So, you know, engaging with a representative in, you know, in a discussion, political or otherwise, is not something that you need this body for.
You're
But
talking about a representative of the
Getting
legislature.
everyone
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
Okay,
you-
but there's
you-
also the organizations, the other organizations that are involved, who have been really important in reaching out to public schools. And helping us resolve problems.
the school
So I
principals and the
agree.
Department of Education.
Right,
There's
the
a lot of
Department of
people here
Education.
together to talk about something like someone's not getting equal access for the
Right.
SATs that can affect change together versus it's just our organization's meeting.
Right.
I'm not hearing Marcus saying, let's hang it up and leave.
No, I'm,
No, he's not.
So it seems like some people are hearing that though. What I'm hearing Marcus saying is that our duty isn't to come here, sit in the room, give a member report and walk out.
That's not been what we've done.
No.
So I
Right,
wanna be
so
clear, that's not been what
I-
we've done here.
I think what I'm hearing from Marcus though is that the assertion that we should strive to stay away from things that are politically inconvenient that affect us.
Is that
is
What's written.
inappropriate.
That's not what's written,
Yeah, so.
but that's
let's
the
stick to
context
what's
we're
written.
operating under.
Oh,
I think
I-
that,
Go ahead.
our only goal needs to be protecting the rights of
Home education.
our RSA 193A families. And, a lot of us, I think, can see that the creation of the EFA program and the expansion of the EFA program could jeopardize us down the line, but it hasn't yet. And so I think that there is like, half of this room is saying we need to fight back, and I would say I'm ready to,
Let's not finish.
I'm
with all due
ready,
respect.
I'm ready to fight back if bills rope us in next session, because this program is new and going to maybe, push us into the corner, and people will forget about us, as some people keep reminding us every month. But we should just be, armed and ready to protect our own rights when that happens. And all the infighting until then is a waste of time.
You could flip it around though, that by having a council such as this, you could be informing and creating pathways to ensure that you're not forgotten or in a corner or inconvenient or all of those things by having, and that's where I'm saying, you don't want to muzzle people. It has felt contentious here and angry at times. And again, sometimes that happens. That should be a reason to not do it. But we want, I feel it is important to steer into what our actual mission and the vision for this group is. And so that as things come up, if there's a concern, so one of the concerns that had been raised was families of kids who are in a traditional home education pathway were beginning to see or experiencing delays in accessing their accounts through that, whatever you guys call it.
Class
Yes.
And the belief was that it was happening because the EFA families were accessing it and getting priority. I have no idea if that's true or not, but that was a belief that some people had. So this group could then say, hey, we've heard a lot of families talk about this legislature, commissioner. Can you talk? I mean, we've done that over the years. Like, can you bring the person who's in charge of the charitable organization to come talk to us about this? We have had opportunities to talk to people in this group who helped us clarify things and made sure, which allowed the voice of this group. So in that spirit, I feel very comfortable with those things. I mean, that was an actual problem that people brought forward. That then like kind of blew up into this thing. And again, you're feeling it's politically charged, people are feeling all different ways. Again, I'd love us to get back to the business that we were doing, which was really good business and service to our home education families. I'm not suggesting put those things aside, but if you see that as something you're worried about, here are the people to talk to, Department of Ed. Let's see if we can get somebody from the Board of Education, even if they only come 3 times a year or twice a year. We can say that, I don't know, but I just think we have an opportunity here.
I think we're all saying the same thing. The problem is when it involves something that's inconvenient to somebody else's agenda, that
How
is
are you
seen as us
defining
being
inconvenient?
active.
That's a perceptual thing, like,
But
that's a
when-
stance.
But when the
Why-
legislature tells us they want you to stop talking about the EFA at HEAC, we're not talking about the EFA like, oh, I wonder what we could do with the EFA.
No.
We're talking about the EFA in the context of how it is directly impacting one
The exact things
and
that you.
families.
The,
It's exactly what you
class
said.
wallet issues, the,
So,
question
but
about.
perceiving that-
Well,
Double,
perhaps instead of
benefits.
having contentious dialogues here or everybody getting all worked up. The people have done this before too, where they went off, made a subcommittee, looked at documentation, what people are concerned about. And didn't create a position, but presented, here are questions people are asking legislature or Representative Cordelli or whoever. Hey, can you guys look at this and have a conversation? And we've all determined it's fuzzy in the law stuff. It's not clear. I mean, it's been months and it's not clear. So
if the repeal attempt was not motivated by us being politically inconvenient to EFA supporters, then how did you have a vote where our repeal was proposed by a Republican legislator, supported by the Republicans on the committee, and opposed by the Democrats on the committee? We are home education, there's no way that supporting us is a Democratic Party goal. It's not. We know that. But we're inconvenient to the more popular, what has been going on here has been inconvenient to the more popular agenda of universal EFAs. And that's why we were brought, called on the carpet. I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry, you had something to say earlier. And
I think I
don't wanna-
completely lost my train of thought.
Okay,
But
so,
I think the concerns are that this council is not adhering to the rules that have been set forth by the commissioner. One of the problems that I see, and I keep taking notes, is that it's not defined in statute what the role of the Home Education Advisory Council is. There was broad rulemaking authority given to the commissioner to create the rules. And I have actually asked the Office of Legislative Research to go back to the 1990 creation of the Home Education Advisory Council to determine what the original legislative intent was, because I think that's part of the problem that we see. And I've noticed through the years, I've gone back through several minutes, this is certainly isn't the first time that this council has had issues. But the purpose is not defined in statute, and I think that's one of the underlying, even when I read these rules, they're kind of fuzzy to me, they're not clearly defined about what the purpose is. And so I think the council has just lost its way, hopefully temporarily, because it does serve a purpose. But I specifically requested to be on this council so that I could protect 193 home educators. Because I was one. And I'm honestly, the last several meetings have been so contentious that it's been really hard as a representative to find sympathy for that. And I actually made a comment about that in the last meeting, and it's been referenced on Facebook and all over the place. And so I want to come in here and say, I'm here to support you, but it's not because of a disagreement with the EFAs. It's a certain tone in the meetings, and I really appreciate what you said, Heather, trying to smooth this over, but I think part of the problem is the original purpose and intent of this council not being clear.
I think there's certainly it's open to interpretation to some extent. Now, I question whether we're going to get any work done today, marking up on this action work. That would please, I've certainly spoken about.
Thank you. I would like to reiterate the part about not in statute, but in rules only, and that is, we've been trying to go through education rules, education statutes, making sure that something always has backup in the statute. That's where it's supposed to originate. And just by giving rulemaking authority, but nothing else, was too much of a blank check, I think, now, and I think we've realized that. So we need to figure out how to do that. I just wanted to say, please don't make a blanket statement about people on the committee. There was a lot going on that nobody heard about. And just because this was made as a repeal doesn't mean it had 100%
Party
support.
line support.
Yeah, okay, there was a lot taken and a lot we took, we took what people came to the hearing and said very seriously.
But the fact that the amendment was placed on the table without the consultation of any member of this committee, nor any member of the home education community abroad, is a serious problem.
Yes, and I agree. And that was one of the major reasons that it didn't go anywhere that day, because we realized it was Thursday before a major holiday and then hearings Tuesday morning is not fair to anyone. And the request to be able to go back to respective organizations and ask for opinion and bring this up was a very reasonable, ask. And so my question to you is, did that get done? And we'd love to hear what you've heard.
Feedback from organizations.
I mean, a lot of people from my organization submitted testimony, including myself, about, why HEAC should exist. And just, I think we all felt really blindsided without any warning that this was something that was being considered. I mean, I'm very new to all of this, so.
Neutral on the existence of HEAC?
No,
Or
new to all of this.
I'm new to the, no, not, no, I just.
So you were in favor of keeping HEAC?
Yes,
yes,
of course.
So is NHSAA. We see it as a very valuable connection. There's been a lot of misunderstandings, miscommunications, misinterpretation of rules and things, and people not knowing out in the community or in the school systems where we've been able to work through, at least during the tenure of my time on this council, working through that stuff, making sure that they know that information, gathering things from home education families about their experiences with schools and vice versa. So I would say that we feel strongly, and I've already said it personally and professionally, we are better together. We need to be having councils that are advising, not making policy, but certainly advising around what's going on or where we see potential errors, barriers, whatever.
Now, I brought this up, I asked for immediate business for this purpose, we're finally there, for transparency. I would love to have everyone say what their group said, what their testimony was. Was it in favor? Was it against? Whether they testified or whether they didn't, for the public to know.
So the New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition is not an advocacy organization. We informed our members in detail about the legislation. We informed them about the meeting times and suggested that if they had an opinion, they should attend or submit testimony. That is our role, and that's what we did. I personally submitted testimony against the amendment and in favor of keeping the HEAC, and I outlined some reasons and why I feel it's an important body.
Granite State's position was that we would like to keep the HEAC, but not at the cost of gagging the membership and speaking about politically contentious or potentially politically contentious terms. And that if the HEAC were to be repealed, that the rulemaking authority should be repealed at the same time. If the rulemaking authority is repealed and then it goes back to, rulemaking goes back to statute, and the legislative process and the public can engage with it that in that way. That's not ideal, but it certainly would be better than having rulemaking authority remain in the Department of Education without any input from the 193A community.
And did you provide testimony or testify?
I did not. Other members of Granite State did.
Because I have a copy of Michelle Lavelle's testimony. Although she didn't read it, her husband did attend. I happened to be at the hearing, saw him, heard him. But then there was a link on the public website that says, the final line of her testimony is that she urges the committee to use this opportunity not to just to eliminate an out-of-date council, but to embrace true educational freedom by removing unnecessary regulatory layers that serve no purpose beyond what our clear statutes already provide. And up here, she says, I generally support the dissolution of the Home Education Advisory Council. Granite State is
Right.
your organization.
Yeah, that is in line with what I just said. Our opinion is that ideally, we don't eliminate the council, but we don't gag it either. I think at the time that was written, it was assumed that this would not be on the agenda if the votes weren't already there for appeal. And so the focus of that was, given we're probably going to lose the council in this amendment, we should at least bring up what I think is a very solid moral argument that without this avenue for public input on rulemaking, that the rulemaking authority shouldn't stay with the Department of Ed. So that was, tactically trying to achieve and, a modification of the amendment. On
So
short
you would say
notice.
that to urge the committee to eliminate the out-of-date council is supportive, yeah?
This-
Is
As
this,
we said, this
so
vote happened on
we're-
very short
We're
notice.
deliberating a person submitted testimony, we're not deliberating this.
Yeah,
draft.
again, and again, I'm not a man, so I can't speak for her, but we had the conversation we had about it. I'm saying that, I'm not Michelle. In the conversations Amanda and I had about this, we were blindsided by it. We were very upset by the short notice, threat to dissolve the act. We assumed that would not have been put forward unless the votes were already there, in private legislative discussions. And so we felt that the only thing that could be achieved from testimony at that hearing was to, basically call out that if you dissolve the HEAC but leave the rulemaking authority in place, now you have this rulemaking authority with no input from the community. And so as testimony to that particular vote, she was saying, yes, go ahead and eliminate HEAC as long as you eliminate the rulemaking.
It was not I support the dissolution of HEAC. She opposed the dissolution of HEAC in her position. And this was more of a goad in, if you're going to do it, you also have to do it completely.
Right.
It was not a position, and I've personally
Okay,
interfaced with Michelle about this,
so
so
let's go to Amanda, who also says she's from Granite State
Before we-
Educators.
do that. I haven't given a report from Christian Home Educators of New Hampshire. and South
Nobody's
Dakota
giving
yet.
any reports because we're still in a meeting.
No, I mean, I, in reference to the,
Oh.
response of the, amendment hearing. So the, response from the Christian Home Educators Organization was that it was absolutely unfair, it was blindsided, it was uninformed, and it was completely off base for this amendment to have been presented. The members felt as though not only did it show that we do not truly have support of the legislature, but that at a moment's notice, they would revoke it. Even if they presented a support opinion at some point. It completely undermined any confidence that we have that the legislature on either side of the aisle has any interest in continuing the benefit of 193A home education family protections.
Except that we brought it forward and then it didn't have repealing it.
The fact that the amendment of a non-germane topic, this was attached to the SAU reorganization bill. It had nothing to do with home education. It was not on our list of things to follow. It wasn't a bill that we've been tracking.
So Michelle, that actually happens during a legislative term because you can't bring new things forward unless you amend something that's already on.
I understand
So-
how the process happened. I'm saying
Right.
in the process of doing so and how it was completely uninformed and uninvolved from this council or the home education community at large. Completely undermines any confidence that the home education community in the state of New Hampshire has in the legislature supporting the home education community in the state of New Hampshire. And that is the feelings that have been presented with the group that I represent to this council.
And how did they, I think the question is also, so that's their concern.
Mhm.
How did they testify? Did
In
people say-
opposition, there was
So in
not a
other words,
single,
in favor of continuing the council or no?
in opposition of the
Yeah.
Of the
appeal.
amendment.
Amanda,
the repeal.
we
It was
quoted as saying,
double
I
edged.
don't necessarily care yet is repealed. That was in her testimony. It is on your website.
I'm not my website.
I'm
Nope.
sorry, Granite State's website.
Yeah, and this is another way of stating the position I articulated.
The repeal amendment never came.
No.
It never came forward for a vote.
So
testimony was
So you
started.
don't know what happened in the black box, but you're making a lot of assumptions. That's what I'm saying.
What we do know happened was an amendment attacking a council that serves 193 home education was presented.
I mean,
It
I
doesn't
assume
matter-
chairman of.
What doesn't
legislative
matter
committees
what they're-
Talk to somebody before they do something like this. It's not just an individual
It's,
inspiration overnight and they
Not-
put, some-
not
I mean.
it seemed, it seemed like the education policy committee
Not speaking for
was
the chairman, it
also
wasn't.
confused about the
That's why the
amendment
chairman-
in some of their questions
Indeed.
to Representative Cordelli and to the people giving their testimony.
And it also seemed as though Representative Cordelli did not have a complete thought of what his reasoning was for submitting the appeal request to begin with.
I exercise a point of personal privilege. My name's been tossed around a lot.
That's fine. You
Marcus, yeah.
defend yourself. You can
I
have, you can have 3
don't,
minutes.
I don't take it as defending myself, but just answering some of what's been said here. First, it was not a failed repeal attempt, because as Representative Dry pointed out, the amendment was never offered for a vote after the hearing. We do have, as was indicated also, certain timeframes to do things. The final time in which we could offer legislation for this year, 2025, was in November of 2024. Since that point, there has been a lot going on with HEAC that, some of us have watched and read about and seen comments on social media. Yes, I felt that things were getting out of control with HEAC and certainly not in line with what is in law in regard to duties of HEAC. That is why I put forward the amendment. Whether the black hole that was referred to as my mind or I don't know what.
And the black box. Right?
Black box, right, yeah. I granted it's a small box, I don't know if it's a black box, but, certainly, I was a member of HEAC for 3 or 4
Yes.
terms.
Yeah.
So, I did not homeschool my children. I gave up my seat on HEAC because I wanted, representatives who I knew had homeschooled their children to be on HEAC. So I gave up my seat for that purpose on HEAC. But I think while I was a member of HEAC, I defended, home education. Are there things that could be done legislatively? Put rules in legislation in the RSAs, yes. I totally support that. Are there tweaks we can make in language in some places? Yes, I had talked to Mr. Carney during the legislative session, drafting period, about language tweaks. But we never came to agreement with, those deadlines on what language tweaks could be made. Could language tweaks be offered in September? Sure. As indicated, after the session, I know I'd be glad to talk to people, and several members of the committee would be glad to talk to people about tweaks that we can put into legislation, both in 193 and 194. I'm still of that mind, let's move forward, get things resolved, get HEAC talking about, home education, maybe as opposed to homeschooling, if you want to put it that way. Get HEAC moving, but, again, we have to come up with legislation in mid-September. So, if we want to do some tweaks in the statutes, fine. let's talk about that and see if we can get things moving in a positive direction. That's my position.
Thank you. We are running out of time today and not move past immediate business.
Rebecca, did you have one last thing to say though?
It's okay. It'll
Okay.
take a while. Maybe I can ask him afterwards.
Oh, go ahead.
So, yeah, I don't know how the membership here wants to proceed. We, regardless of whether it's acceptable to deliver annual report in fall, it is still pending business that we have to get to.
So can I offer one thing? I think maybe we're not gonna get too far into the agenda.
No.
But, we could do, we've done this immediate business thing. We could do the update from the Department of Ed. And then we could, get to that, you could review what was on the agenda, because we're gonna move it to the next agenda, obviously. And then allow the public comments, because there's been a bunch of people sitting there who came to this
There's
meeting.
someone in the waiting.
I just feel like we only have about 20 minutes,
Yes,
and we might want to let the community speak, because they did come to this meeting, and I feel like that's an important part of the thing that we do.
So I don't have an update, but I do want to ask, how do you want to handle this? Because there have been people commenting, which that's not usually the case.
Oh,
Usually They wait
and,
until I make a comment, like, please submit your comment now. So do you want to go backwards and go through what they said, or would you like to ask them now to submit?
Wait,
What they
do you
want.
mean?
oh, you're saying tech in the text chat.
Their chat, they're like,
Yeah.
the chat. Usually, everyone waits until there's a comment. Like,
So is it around this immediate business? Or do we want to put it in the public comment section, which is what I'm suggesting, is that could we move down through the updates, which you don't have one?
Agenda review and public comment.
Right, and then let that happen, and then perhaps you could read those at that point, so they're read into the record.
do you want me to do this, or would you like me to ask them
Yeah,
if they
so-
have something formal to say?
Yeah, they could formally
Okay.
say it, right, if you could actually, we could ask them, you could actually put that out there, would you like to speak? Or do you want me to read your comment? I mean, I
Or
think that's,
I think the comments should be read into the record because otherwise they disappear once the Zoom is
Right.
closed. So the
That's what I
comments should be read, but if there is further actual public comment,
They
that
could
that
add
should be
it.
offered.
I agree with that, because there may be people who commented and
and
then
left,
had to leave.
I would agree with that. I like
really
that.
do want to hear.
So,
So
are-
I'm going to say now for the record, as part of my agenda review, that we will end this meeting on public comments because of time. And that we can expect in July, the second Friday of July, if somebody wants to look up what that is, that we'll be meeting again with the same agenda. Starting from member reports.
We don't typically meet in July or August.
Well, we have pressing business that we have not gotten to now for 2 meetings.
I would suggest putting this in a Google Doc and working on it.
That is not
Well,
appropriate.
It's totally appropriate. It's not subject to 91A. It's a working document.
But it's a
Okay.
quorum of members on a document. It's not appropriate in that sense.
To work on proposing the draft.
so we can do that, we've done that before, and years ago, actually, Representative Cordelli, you were in the group when we were revising the rules, and they took them to the legislature and they cleaned them up, that was the last time we did that. We had a couple working documents that people were working in, so we could do that, and then convene in September.
I think that there are contrary opinions on major sections of this document. And you're just going to find yourself going into Google Docs and one person deleting entire paragraphs and another person undoing their delete, and I don't see that being constructive.
I think the most appropriate step at this juncture is to have that the current draft that Marcus has made for us be the item that is sent from HEAC, and if there are dissenting opinions, they may make a minority report, as has been done in the past.
I would disagree because there are inaccuracies in it right now because of the letter we received in the interim about the CSF double dipping issue.
That
That's
is
not
not
an
an answer.
inaccuracy.
That's not an inaccuracy. That's
Even,
not
even
an
if,
answer.
even if we
No, okay.
well,
so
if
hold
we're
on.
reporting what our business was for 2024-25, and during 2024-25, that question arose and was discussed. So
That's
it's
all
not,
we have to
it's
say.
not inaccurate in the
And-
report to say this is the nature of the
That is
controversy as
true.
of the end of 2025.
But going into whether or not it was legal or not, or any of that is out of our purview. Because we don't know the answer to that. I do think it was discussed, so as we said, there were questions that were raised in the community and by council members. See, just this tells me that this needs work. I'm gonna make a motion that we actually use, I accept the idea that we start with what you have. In the minutes, there are things that people already said were places that people wanted to discuss. You've attempted to address some of that. There's also some other things that came up, so I'm comfortable if we could agree that, let's say by the, I don't know, July 31st, people have submitted anything else to you. If you don't submit, that's on you. You've accepted what is in this. If people have a strong opinion, I agree with you, submit a minority report. But I'm not ready to vote on this right now. I cannot.
I agree with Michelle that, there should be a minority report, because I know that there are members who strongly disagree with the entire thrust of the report as I wrote it. And so I would much rather that they either starting from mine as a base or starting from a blank piece of paper. Give
But
the
I don't know
report they
if
want.
that's a minority.
I think though,
That's-
That's a minority report when we bring it to the meeting and vote on it, right? So.
That's why,
if members feel this way-
I'm not sure that I'm not sure where the minority is,
Well,
right?
that's not.
well,
I'm
at
just-
the end
I
of the
know.
day, the chair
I
has the
know, I
first
agree.
report and the minority report is the secondary report. But what happens is, we had this discussion and we had a deliberation through the report last session. And we were told each to go home and send Marcus suggestions, and nobody
nobody
did
did.
that.
And
That
I made a
opportunity was
point.
had and
I
made,
think
and
they
nobody.
believe
My
that though,
understanding
because
is
their understanding was we were having a whole nother meeting to discuss this, so.
But we
in fairness to
said at the
council-
close of that meeting that we needed, if anybody had anything that they had of concern, to send it to Marcus so that it could be prepared for a new draft at this, excuse me, at this meeting, and that was not done.
And I included I created the second draft based on the comments in the first meeting. And I made an effort to get it out within 24 hours of that meeting. So it's been in everybody's hands for 30 minutes, for 30 days. We know that this is the reason why it was such a hellfire emergency to get the council dissolved before September.
Especially
Uh,
considering the instructions that we received to tell me to put work down.
Right, so it's been widely circulated and commented on, just not to me. So none of those changes actually came to me.
It's a third option, which is, we already approved most of the first page. Why don't we just submit that instead of submitting something that we haven't discussed, the second and third page?
Well, because the new report is a completely different report than the one that was presented at
It's
the
a lot
meeting.
longer.
Nothing's been read into the record.
The first page is all the things that we approved and discussed. It's like 5 paragraphs.
Yes, I
So,
understand.
I'm sorry, there's a motion on the table to submit.
No second
I
yet.
didn't know, I made a motion, and my
Okay,
motion
then I-
is that we actually take what you made as a second, what I considered a draft. Not the final report, because we were gonna meet and talk about it today.
Okay.
So it can't possibly be a final report if we're meeting to discuss it in a special meeting, otherwise there was no reason to have this meeting today.
Right.
And I came here to discuss the report and to actually sort of talk about how we're better together, all of us, all the different groups around the state, all the different agencies, the Department of Ed, the legislature, the school board, everybody. We can't do this work if we're not gonna work collaboratively together, okay? So I've made that a point of the conversation today. Now I would like to say, my motion is that we take the draft, which he's now taken what everybody gave him last time. And my motion is that everyone has till July 31st to input in a working document, and no one's gonna write over top of anything. You just submit your thing, but I like the idea of having it in this, you could see what's in there. And when people are writing, because sometimes it sparks you to be like, oh, yeah, or here's what I'm thinking about that, so that when we sit down the next time, if there's parts of it that are perfectly fine, we don't even go through them again, they're already done, kind of along the lines of what Diane's saying. And then after that, we just have to look at the parts and just jury them in or out as a group. So that we have a final report that you could read at the September meeting, which means that we potentially either do this all remotely. Or we actually meet in August and actually look at it, but I don't wanna meet if we don't actually have something to meet about.
Well, we did today, but between a point of
Right,
order
and I
and.
think that's
and
fair, I
immediate
think it's
business.
a healthy, important conversation.
I just wanna make sure that the next time we meet, whether it's in August or September, that we have some way to not have this happen
I
again,
would agree with
where the agenda is hijacked with whatever. Immediate, you know,
I
a
take
point of
objection
order
if
or
we're
immediate
moving to
business
point
having
of
to do
order
with
that I
appeal
brought up.
hearing.
I did not intend to hijack the meeting,
No,
I
I
was
don't
making a
think so.
legitimate point of order, and it was nothing against you.
But I understand that, but
And
it's still, we spent a good amount of time on it.
We did,
I want to make sure that that doesn't
So
happen.
it's 3:16 and I absolutely have to leave at 4:30. So is there any possible way that the public could actually speak or whatever?
I second the motion,
Thank
because there's
you.
a motion on the
Thank you.
table.
Yes.
I second the motion. I have some questions about the logistics of it. I want to make sure that it's, that the process is correct.
Yeah.
Because
So,
I,
yes.
yeah.
I'd like to make sure it's not a violation of 91A.
Yeah, that's what I, and
That's right, because that's one reason that I
Yes, it's
didn't
not.
submit comments. And I also prefer to come to the meeting and have everybody talk about their comments, because I think that's a better way of communicating. I second the motion to, well, I can't change your motion. I said,
you can just
Just
say,
second the motion for us to vote on it and
Yeah.
to clear it out if
yeah,
it's
figure it
not.
out. It's okay.
uh,
I won't either, but
yeah.
I'm not really sure what process is being.
I have no
I
idea.
guess we have to figure out the process first,
Yeah.
maybe.
So
You can remove the motion.
I'm gonna remove the motion.
Okay.
I think the best thing to do is individually, maybe without collaboration, and I don't think we need to vote on this. Print a copy of it and do your own markup, be
Beautiful.
prepared for the next meeting,
Great.
and then as a group, we can line by line, edit and
It's
get
time
through it.
consuming, but I think it'll be a good discussion.
I think as a board, the first page is so far pretty
Yeah,
non-controversial,
so I think
about one
that
page.
you're only
fix
talking
or
about the other
however.
things.
Can I just ask if at the next meeting no one can agree or there isn't what happens next? Does the report get submitted with only partial
Is if it's accepted,
full?
it has to be approved, no?
But that's how we landed where we're at
It
today.
has to be
The
approved
whole
by
meeting didn't
everyone,
get
or-
done.
No, you have to have a majority, and once you have a majority,
And
then you can write the people that don't like the report that's going forward can write a minority report, that's why we
Minority
have that.
statement on.
Is it
Yeah.
a majority of voting members or a majority of the full HEAC?
It has to be voting.
Voting members.
Then I propose a motion, please, to submit the report that Marcus has prepared for us, and if a minority report is desired, it can be submitted afterwards.
So you move to adopt.
I'll
the
second
draft,
that motion,
Modification.
motion rather than a motion, I'm gonna second that motion so we can vote on it.
State your motion, please.
The motion is to adopt as presented the HEAC report that was presented by Marcus to all members via email after the last meeting.
Rebecca Anderson.
I'm sorry,
Nope.
I got distracted. Would you mind repeating it?
Sure.
No, she wants us to accept this report.
Without
Accept this
modification.
report for
Without
submission.
As it is,
modification.
yes, right now, as it is.
To determine whether or not we have a majority or minority.
Right, that's what she wants to figure out.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead. Rebecca,
Yes,
I'm sorry, Rebecca Anderson,
yes.
Heather Barker,
no,
Althea Barton,
No,
Diane Nolan, no. James Zoro, no. Okay, sorry, he's not here. Robacker. I got 2 votes in.
Michelle Rohrabacher.
Michelle Robacher.
Yes, I approve my motion.
Trying to do it. Very good.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a tie.
Alright.
So it's.
It's not
So
a
it
tie
doesn't
of
move
voting
that.
members.
no, it's dead.
It
You
is.
have to have a
It's 3
majority.
and 3.
So now we
Okay,
know,
Now we know.
now we know that people, that at least half the people wanna work on it. So I make a motion that we do exactly what you said a minute ago, Marcus, which is this. Marcus has presented a second draft of the report. If people choose not to offer any input or do anything with it, that's great. If people come to the next meeting, whenever we decide that is, and they've been invited to go line by line, what do you want in here? What do you want to take out? Whatever you at least discuss. So that we can get to a place where we can create a majority report. Then if there's a minority dissent, then those folks, whoever the no's are, can write their own report. Or at least at least a statement about it. I think that would be a great motion, so that's my motion.
I second.
Rebecca Anderson,
Yes.
Heather Barker,
Yes.
Althea Barton,
Yes.
Diane Nolan, yes. Michelle Rohracker,
Yes.
Mark Sue.
Yes.
So then we just decided we want to meet, I think everybody meets July.
Yes.
That's
Yes,
when most
that's
people
July.
either have vacation.
Sure.
September meeting.
Yeah,
I have a, I guess, a point of order. I hate to insert
Not
another
August.
member for the public, but this should say draft. This says
Yes.
approved May 9th. Please change it to say draft.
Yeah.
It's really incorrect that this has been circulating in the public as approved when it's not approved.
Thank you.
okay, so. If we're good with that, could we move to public comments?
So we start reading?
Yeah.
Okay, there's quite a few. Okay, I'm just gonna go through. Amanda Whedon says, many thanks to Mike Kosky for many years of volunteering for the
Aw,
council.
That's great.
Christine Rodriguez says, are we going to start operating in fear now because of upsetting Cordelli? That is a recipe of cowardice and failure. The only one being uncivil was Edelblue. Megan Schmidt says, thank you, Michelle. Kate Abbott says, I'm 193A and the scholarship fund issue I had was regarding the ETC. Sorry. Next page here. Which is intended for 193A. Megan Schmidt says exactly 193A families need a voice too. Christine Rodriguez says, thank you, Marcus. Megan Schmidt says, is there not an EFA council? And aren't families that take EFAs legally required to unenroll in 193A homeschooling?
Yes.
Yes to both.
Terminate.
Yes. Yeah.
Megan Schmidt says, I believe the commissioner also referred to EFA as public education pathway. Christine Rodriguez says, he did, Megan. Sorry, this is hard to toggle. Kate,
Sometimes the arrow keys will step through it a
You
line
think
at a
so?
time.
no, I lost my place.
But if you
Sorry.
arrow down now, it should highlight them individually. Yep.
Kate Abbott says the commissioner has been unresponsive when these issues have been brought to him. Christine Rodriguez says, what do we do if the commissioner ignores our questions or concerns as he has been? Let me know if you need me to stop, I don't know. Christine Rodriguez says, shouldn't everyone on this council be passionate about protecting traditional home education? Otherwise, why even be on this council if you aren't? Kate Abbott says, I am concerned that a committee who is charged with advising the commissioner regarding home ed policy might not be committed to protecting the rights and bringing forth my concerns regarding home ed. Megan Schmidt says, my concern is that I do not trust the legislature to protect my rights as a homeschooler. I would like HEAC to be a voice for us when inevitably we get pumped into policy with EFA, etc. Plus, this is a good opportunity for the reps to learn if they keep open minds. Kate Abbott says, the same rep that proposed the dissolution of HEAC on a non-germane bill brought forth a different bill to model a council after HEAC for 194F. The proposition seemed to be retaliatory. Christine Rodriguez says, if it wasn't retaliatory, then why didn't Cordelli notify HEAC himself? I asked for public comment. Says, it seems like the end of the year report is initially being kicked down the line.
Intentionally.
Intentionally. Christine Rodriguez says, I agree. Kate Abbott says, I would like my chat comments to be entered into the public record if possible. Christine Rodriguez says, I agree with Marcus and Michelle that the report be submitted as is and a minority report be submitted for dissenters. Joy and Jen Pereira say that would be a right to know violation where concessions have to be open to the public.
Can you just, I do think you need to respond to that because that's been read into the record.
No, I actually opened on the Department of Education website, there is under the, right to know law section. If you scroll down, it says, New Hampshire's right, from the New Hampshire Department of Justice, Office of the Attorney General. There's a link to New Hampshire's right to know law manual. And when you open that up and scroll down to where it says what does not constitute a meeting, it says circulation of draft documents which, when finalized, are intended only to formalize previously deliberated decisions. So, and then it says there's a caution, emails simultaneously or sequentially sent to the quorum discussing official business would be subject to
That's different.
right now. But working on a document that's to be formalized does not necessarily, does not constitute a meeting.
I think that fails to capture the nuance of what a Google document does. A Google document is a contemporaneously edited document. Everyone can see each individual's actions and corrections to the document. It is the same as an email thread. It's an electronic meeting.
So you're saying it's a violation of 91 X?
We're not doing it regardless, but I do get, working on a draft document that's being circulated is allowed.
If we're independently
That's
working
how
on that
you-
document, that is not a
Yeah, I'm
violation.
with you 100%.
Okay.
For you to
Because the email thing and having people do that, that's absolutely like with school boards, with all the things.
Yeah.
It has to be a public thing, so that's great, we're not doing it.
Do we have any live comments in,
Yeah, that's my question now.
Well, Christine Rodriguez says Michelle's correct. Google Doc is completely different. Bejoy and Jen Pereira say the Department of Ed lawyer advised she could be contacted.
is there anybody in the teleconference who wants to give verbal testimony?
They can hear us, right? So they know we've asked that question.
I think, well, we do have a person here in the room.
We have some in person.
Okay.
If nobody's volunteering on the teleconference, I'm gonna go to the room.
Christine Rodriguez says, I would like to speak.
Yes. 3 minutes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm like, I can't activate my video. Thank you. My name is Christine Rodriguez. I am an unfunded homeschooler here in New Hampshire. And I have my toddlers here, so they might be coming in and out. I just wanted to, hold on one second. Okay, can you guys? Hold on one second. They just walked in. Hold on, guys, you're gonna have to wait. Okay, sorry about that. That's why I don't go in person, because I have my toddlers. I just wanted to say that I am absolutely disgusted with what happened at the meeting, the hearing with the amendment, and I'm so glad that, I think that's Cordelli who's there. You can say whatever you want, but it was retaliatory. There is no way that anyone can believe that it wasn't. That is horrendous. The fact that it happened over a holiday weekend and we were ambushed is disgusting. So I'm appalled that this stuff can even happen and is allowed. I'm also appalled with what I've seen over HEAC over the last several months, that there seem to be members on this board that are not in support of homeschooling rights. It just seems like there are people that are compromised, just like that other lady that finally resigned after the public had to plead for her to leave. And that's something that I just wanted to make point that I am very active in watching these meetings. And so far, it just seems like there is a divide. And I completely disagree with the comments that the tone is wrong or that it's uncivil. The only person that has been uncivil has been the commissioner. He has been unresponsive, has ignored HEAC for months, does not care about what's happening here. And then he has the audacity to be so rude to Michelle. It was just, I just can't believe that people can't see that. It was just appalling. So that's all I just wanted to say, that I just can't believe what's been going on. And I'm so thankful that there are people that do speak up for us. And I am happy that HEAC is still around.
Anybody else in the conference?
Okay.
All right, going to the room. Rep. Cordelli, are you satisfied with the previous testimony? Do you want to
No,
comment further?
this was something entirely different. This past week, I had arranged a presentation on AI in education for legislators. We had representatives from Khan Academy come in, who for the past year have made their Conmigo artificial intelligence site available to public schools in the state. This provides a student and teacher portal to help students do work, not do work for them. It helps teachers do lesson plans and keep track of student activity. It also has a writing coach AI function. They are extending that, the initial contract is ended, they are extending it for New Hampshire for an additional year for free access. Includes homeschoolers. Okay,
Home
So I-
educators.
home educators. Both, right? I've been in contact with their representatives. They are willing to set up an online Zoom demonstration of the product to see who wants to take advantage of it. And it expires June 30th, though, to register. So I'd be glad to help you. Any one of the groups set up a Zoom with the representative from Khan Academy to look at the product and see if your members want to take advantage of it for free for a year. So my telephone number, my cell phone is 203, that's not live, is it? 203-417-2450. So if you want to do this, you know, have your homeschool group do this. I'm talking to another co-op about doing the same thing, you know, just let me know and we'll arrange it. Thank you.
Deb Sullivan.
Deb Sullivan, I've observed several HEAC meetings and I'd like to thank the education representatives for their efforts to ensure HEAC remains focused on 193A and not 194 questions and concerns. From what I've learned about problems with the Children's Scholarship Fund handling of ETC by these HEAC meetings, I hope HEAC will continue to push for sunshine regarding the legality of stacking EFA and ETC funds. I also hope that, like other pieces of legislation that might have negative effects on the home ed community, like things that have come up, like say, background checks and other things that might look like, you know, general government overreach, I hope PF members will not be afraid to discuss both real and possible negative outcomes for the home education community from EFA expansion. Also, I just want to make a quick comment that, you know, togetherness is all well and good, and, you know, suggestions to, you know, DOE and the commissioner, fine, but again, I want to echo what some other cons. What happens when he doesn't listen? You can suggest, and it's only a one-way street, and he doesn't jump back over the bridge, that's just supposed to be, you know, that's a concern. You know, 100%.
Thank you.
Are there advocacy groups for home education?
Are there,
Like an actual advocacy group that's actually meeting?
Like that, public of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
HSLDA, like you.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Sort of just thinking about that, like that's.
Not the,
There
There
are
are-
a few HSLDA versions, yeah. There are several others.
there is a faith-based pact that is nationwide. But it stands in opposition to many things that have already become contentious within this council.
And there's a distinction between an organization like the National Homeschooling Coalition,
Right.
where where our mission states that we can't take a stand.
Right.
And we can't recommend
Right.
that people oppose or support
Right.
legislation, right? Whereas other organizations, I believe, can do that.
Maybe that's where they join up if they have a common issue. Perhaps they come to things like this or whatever to get it ready to the record so that then Commissioner, there'll be a new one. Will hear that. And again, I think it is our work to put forward to the commissioner as we have done in the past when we see things. I do think that we sort ourselves, the laws are fuzzy. It's hard to, well, so I go back to what was the actual intention? What was the intention of that? But again, sometimes it's hard to decipher, so, and I appreciate the comment about, you know, better together, but you have to, there's going to be friction and flow at times, for sure. It happens everywhere, but a healthy organization, right, we can't achieve great goals for everybody, especially these families who are looking for the support. with everybody working together, so,
The next order of business needs to be, what is the next meeting?
yeah. I know,
I believe it
propose
should
in
be
September.
August.
you're proposing September,
Why July or August if we've never done it?
Are you making a motion?
Because we have
Yeah.
vacancies that still need to be filled by the next commission.
We've always had vacancies. We've had vacancies pretty much consistent for years.
We've had also candidates that were put forward that were denied by the commissioner currently because he felt that the HEAC was off its course and would not.
Nominations can still take place while we're not meeting.
Yeah,
Well, you
I
could
don't
make
see the
that-
relevance of the vacancies,
yeah.
but regardless of whether there's a hard and fast rule about when we have to turn in a report, I see a report as 2024-25 school year
Yeah.
business that needs to be resolved.
I agree.
And I don't want to wait until September when we're going to start getting September questions that are part of our 25-26 business, right? And people are going back to school. So I would like if the rest of the council's amenable to meet in August, if not July. August is fine, but at least it gives us a session to clear this out before we're faced with whatever the next September brings us.
I cannot do August.
Can you do July?
Can't do either one. I'm sorry.
Well, it's
And I
not a requirement that every member attends, but
Yeah.
if you have the ability to
Can send it.
submit.
Still doesn't have the same effect, but
Would you be able to participate remotely in either of those, during either of those ones?
where I'll be. You're saying the second or third weeks? Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is tantamount to you holding hostage the activities of the HEAC.
No,
Yes, I understand.
please, I mean, look, we can vote. Do we want to meet in August or not? I,
Doesn't have to be the second Tuesday either, since this is way of course.
usually meet Friday.
It does,
Yeah.
do we need to think about having a brand new commissioner and how that is affected in this summer specifically that she may not know? She may need to hear from HEAC.
I actually think it's a wonderful idea to have a meeting this summer and invite the commissioner
yeah,
to sit in with us. Why not?
Even if the main point is
No, we
to
don't-
do the
well, you're right.
report
There's
submitting
nothing
to.
proposed, yeah.
She starts in July, according to yesterday's board meeting.
is there a time in August? When everybody would be available for a meeting? Specifically for the purpose of reviewing.
It seems like it would, can we do a remote meeting or not?
No, well, we need to have a quorum of
Yeah.
voting members, at least 4 voting members in person.
I can be.
You're saying in July
I
or
can
August?
I can do either one. I, like Marcus, feel like there's some urgency to getting this done. So that we can move on and start fresh in September with new business. We've also got an offer today by a representative to work with the representatives around stuff that we've seen as fuzzy or problems and have actual conversations. I would love that to happen. That's happened in the past while I was on this advisory council, and I'd like to see us return to that kind of work. I'm now thinking when we were starting to experience some of the challenges, this is not a criticism. I should have thought of it myself. Inviting some of the people to come talk to us about it, to sort of understand the intention, whatever. So at least we would have done that. So I'm open to July or August. We also said that people can work on a draft and submit it to Marcus.
Well, I would say you work on a draft, you bring your draft.
Yeah, bring
you
the
know,
draft,
Marked
that's right.
up. it's in
That's
front
what
of
we
you,
said, it's fine. And
so
if you
know
don't
what
bring
you-
anything, you've accepted what Marcus has completed. Yeah. No,
Still
okay.
vote against me, but.
No, which was the work
Right.
of everybody, so
Right.
this is not about Marcus, like, he's hanging out on a limb
Mhm.
and we're all against you, no way.
Right.
It was the one you put together in good faith based on all the stuff,
Right.
okay? So, I'm open in July or August, when
So
can we get at least 4 people live to meet? And then, so.
I really appreciate the feeling we have of trying to include everyone.
Yeah.
Because we all know that we have diverse voices here,
Right.
so
You're right.
if 1 or 2 people can't attend a meeting that we schedule in July or August, and they have submitted, no, they haven't submitted. How would their thoughts be conveyed?
They can submit them separately to Marcus, we just can't work on it in a document together.
Right. So they could submit it that day. If you wanna make it that, I mean. Somehow we have to get this report done.
If someone's not able to attend in person, their opinions and edits can be
Cause we asked
Held
people to
it to
go
this-
line by line.
held to
We're
the
gonna
side during the
line by
meeting
line,
and
so obviously that
it's
person.
referenced at that
And we're
time.
talking at the same time.
Sorry,
You were talking.
Sorry, if the person is not physically here, but has submitted edits and concerns, then it would be that they've submitted it and they're just not here to come to the harmonious point of the discussion at that point.
here's, for members who are unable to attend in this hypothetical summer meeting. That we haven't scheduled yet, I will take the responsibility of. In the line by line review, reading out their edits. And obviously, they won't be available to vote for their edits to be adopted, but then we will at least hear those edits. So everybody can just send their version, their marked up version to me. Please use strike through or something so I can figure out where I am in the document instead of just overwriting.
I have a crazy idea. This will sound crazy, since how much notice has to be on? That there's going to be a meeting. We are allowed to hold an emergency meeting, let's hold a meeting. Let's just get it done. It says right in there that we can get it done, it says there can be an emergency meeting, we don't wanna use the sun.
For me too. And it's very tight in terms of getting that work done.
I have a son who's getting there in 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I don't wanna use. Okay. Done.
So is there a motion or we just been discussing?
Somebody want to move
I will-
for?
It's a meeting. just
I will
on the
move to meet
schedule,
in
and then
July on
we're
the second
we're
Friday.
done. It's not happening.
I move to meet
Very
in
simple.
July on the second Friday. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second Friday of July.
Second Friday of July, which is the 11th.
Okay, Rebecca Anderson,
Yes,
Althea Barton,
No,
sorry, I skipped Heather Barton.
Wait, hang on, I just gotta look. I can do that Friday, yes.
I know and no. Rochelle Robarker,
Yes,
Marcus Stewart,
Yes.
second Friday, July.
I will be spreading the ashes of my stepfather on that day.
I'm sorry. Well. I know we've accepted that, but could we look at the next one out? Yeah, I mean, I hate to exclude people, we've already made up the thing, but, cause I was gonna say, it doesn't have to be a Friday. This is an unusual meeting,
and it doesn't have to be the second Friday, right?
that's what I
It could
said,
be
it doesn't
July
have to be a
18th.
Friday.
We could just keep going until,
We already have.
we could until, I'm fine with that. I move
So,
to,
Diane, are there any days in July or August that you could meet by for 2 hours? Doesn't, it could be
Sounds like
midweek,
exciting.
I'm saying week, I'm willing, I
It's
can,
my only vacation time.
no, I understand.
Yeah, no, I'm away that weekend.
no, we're talking about any dates, Diane. July 1st through August 31st.
The following one, the one after that, I'm sorry, we're.
Not
Not
just
just
Fridays,
Fridays.
not just Fridays, Diane. We're talking about every
Yeah.
day of the
So I'm
week.
going Fridays through Tuesdays of every week.
Okay,
So is there a Monday that you're available?
no, Friday through
A
Tuesday?
Friday through Tuesday?
So Wednesday or Thursday?
Is there Wednesday or Thursday that you're available?
The 24th
I'm available. July?
July?
of July.
I make a motion that we schedule the next meeting for Thursday, July 24th.
But just hold on, I'm sorry, you can make the motion.
Yeah.
I just have to finish looking at my calendar.
Don't worry.
And are we saying 2:30?
Yeah, then
Fine.
normal time and place.
Yeah.
So I cannot do 2:30. I could do earlier in the day on the 24th of July.
People do 10 to noon.
Time is fine with me. I think that
10 to 11.
the only thing we have to think about at this point would be the consideration of the Department of Education for availability.
All right.
I'm not sure that I'll be around, but someone can. Thank you.
So
So
I
if we look-
personally can do 10 to noon on July 24th.
Okay, I amend my motion to be 10 to noon on July 24th. Wait a second.
I will second that.
Rebecca Anderson,
Yes,
Heather Barker,
Yes.
Althea Barton,
Yes, with the caveat that we try not to meet in the summer later. But
Yes, I think this is an extenuating circumstance.
Diane Nolan, yes. Michelle Barker.
Yes.
Marcus Stewart.
Yes.
So we will write the motion on July, the second Friday.
Yes.
And Marcus, could you, just because we'll be new, she will be new, or if the commissioners all said, could we reach out as a council to invite the commission?
I would like to not try to do that the
So you
same
don't want to
session
go
we're
for that?
working
Okay,
on.
all right.
But I think that's a good idea for September.
September, that would be good.
Well, actually, they can attend anytime they want, because it's.
Obviously.
Right, but
That-
I get what you're saying, it could just add another whole layer to that.
So
All
we're
right, let's
considering,
keep it simple.
so we're considering this a special meeting for the purpose
is
of
a special-
approving the letter to the report to the annual.
Have to make different stuff,
We make a motion to close?
please.
I make a motion to close.
I second it,
Rebecca Anderson,
Yes.
Heather Barker,
yes.
Althea Barton,
Yes.
Diane Nolan, yes. Michelle Barker.
Yes.
Marcus Stewart.
Yes. See you in